The Citroen C5 Aircross has been around since 2017. However, the SUV became a plug-in hybrid in late 2019, and it was available to customers to purchase in 2020 with prices starting from £34,000. Now in this review, we're seeing if it's worth its price tag and furthermore how it compares to some of its rivals. So to kick things off, we're going to talk about its exterior design, and quite frankly I think the frontal design of the vehicle is just a little bit convoluted. Take for example the front bumper. It has these blue accents which determine it's a, well, eco vehicle. It's got the plug-in hybrid function of it, but then just above that you've then got these chrome accents around the front grille, and then above that you've then got the headlights. It just seems a bit too much and a bit too messy for my liking. Of course that is subjective, so do let me know in the comments below what you make of it. Then towards the side of the vehicle you do have 18-inch alloys that come as standard in the Shine variant, and then 19-inch alloys in the Shine Plus, which definitely do add to the overall sporty, classy look of the vehicle. You do have these plastic inserts around the wheel arches and the side skirts, and the side skirts do have this, again, this kind of blue theme that reside with it. Now at the rear of the vehicle, it's arguably the best part of the aesthetics of the vehicle, at least from the exterior, whereby here it sits with the Citroen theme and has got really stylish tail lights which, well, kind of fit with the rest of the vehicle's aesthetics. Now moving inside the cabin, I must say that the design is quite familiar looking, although there's yet again these design elements which I can't quite agree with. Volume controls on the left hand side on the steering wheel, for example, while the media seek buttons are found on the right hand side. Then the start stop engine button found on the left hand side furthest away from the driver, at least in the UK, just doesn't quite make sense. Then there's the infotainment system. Not only is the menu system just a little bit convoluted, then you've got these capacitive buttons to access certain parts of the infotainment system. Then underneath that again, you've then got physical climate control buttons, which I usually quite like, but then yet again the adjustments just don't quite make sense. I do, however, like the fact that they've integrated a physical volume wheel, and if you tap it, it does mute the infotainment system, something that's definitely appreciated and that does go amiss in some of its competitors. Now, on the subject of technology, I should say that the infotainment system and even the instrument cluster are a little bit sluggish. If you're going to be transitioning through different menus on the instrument cluster, it's just a little bit slow. The same could be said with the built-in maps on the infotainment system. Now, for you to completely revamp the infotainment system, you can plug in a compatible Android or iPhone device, and here you've got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay that come as standard. You can connect over the USB port that's found at the front of the center console, and this makes it for a far bettered experience when you're driving around. Now, continuing on with the subject of technology, I should also mention the audio system that's comprised. Now, for those who are subscribed to the channel, you'll know that I do dedicated audio reviews, so definitely do check it up on your pop-up banner if you want to see the C5 Aircross Hybrid dedicated audio review. Now, in a nutshell, the 6 speakers that come in comprised and as standard are decent. They're not exactly going to set your world alight, but they will be pleasantly fine for most consumers out there on the market. Now, moving swiftly on, we get onto storage capacity, which is absolutely spectacular in the C5 Aircross Hybrid. At the front, you've got these large size door bins, which are large enough for a 500ml bottle or a large size purse or wallet. At the rear, it's a little bit more limited, but still plentiful for your rear occupants. The glove compartment is a little bit limited given the fact that you've got the left and right hand conversion, but it's still fine to store away, let's say, smaller valuables from prying eyes. And then you've got the center console unit. Here it's just incredible as to how much storage is available. At the front you've got a non-slip bay which will fit a large size smartphone, so no issues here no matter what phone or manufacturer you go for. And then you've got a little compartment by the gear selector which allows you to put, let's say, some loose change or the key fob. Then you've got 2 cup holders which are also eliminated if you go for the Shine Plus. And then you've got the pièce de résistance, as they would say in France, the center armrest compartment storage. It's absolutely massive. I can put my hand completely into it and it goes to pretty much my elbow. You've also got a customizable kind of little storage bay as well to, let's say, put some loose change or, let's say, some charging cables. What I love about here is the fact that you can not only place a large size purse or a wallet, but you can also place, let's say, a small malleable bag, which is pretty insane to think of it. So for those people who really are concerned about storage space, Don't be. The C5 Aircross is a class of its own. Now, aside from inside the cabin, of course, you have got the rear boot. And in the regular Shine model, it's a non-electric tailgate, but of course, it runs on hydraulics. Now, in terms of the height of it, I'm just under 6 foot and I can just about fit. So therefore, loading in and out of the vehicle is not an issue. Now, I do really like the fact that Citroen have integrated a flat loading bay, and you've even got underfloor storage for a singular charging cable, which in this respect, it'll be useful to have when you're on the go. Now, in terms of the actual boot capacity, it's plentiful. You've got 460 litres to play around with, and it can be extended to up to 600 litres. Now, that is down from 580 and 720 litres respectively from the non-electrified model, because the batteries sit over here. Now, the reason why you've got this kind of adjustment or this kind of range is because the rear seats can be brought forwards, so therefore it just gives you an extra amount of rear boot capacity. So that is quite handy if you don't want to pop down the seats. But of course, if you do pop down the seats, you do get an extended figure. Now, this is sitting at 1,510 litres, which is down from 1,630 litres from the non-electrified model, but it's again very well handy for taking larger goods. Furthermore, the seats can be brought down independently, so you can have the rear middle seat brought down and take elongated goods. And while you don't have a ski latch, I don't think this will bother many consumers out there on the market. Now, when it comes to the rear seats, indeed, they can be adjusted, in other words, brought forwards, although I think most people will want them at their lowest point, or let's say furthest point away from the front seats. And here, as someone who's just under 6 foot, I've got plenty of legroom and plenty of headroom. Same can be said at the center, where you've got a full-size seat, which is quite rare to see. So therefore you can sit 3 occupants very comfortably, and with the center console unit not kind of protruding too much, it means that even with someone like myself who's got relatively longer legs in comparison to their torso, I can still sit here for longer distance drives. Now, it is worth bearing in mind that you do not have kind of like a center armrest compartment or cup holders, but for convenience you do have a USB port that can be used, or let's say shared, between the 3 occupants over here. Now, for the seat comfort themselves, it's also absolutely phenomenal. Here, Citroen have really knocked it out the park. The seats at the back and the seats at the front are identical, not only in terms of their seat width, but also in terms of the cushiony material that Citroen have chosen. It means that, well, it kind of feels like you sink in, and sometimes almost makes you want to sleep. And I know that's not quite safe when you're driving, but for your occupants, I think it'll be very much appreciated. Now, you've got manually adjustable seats at the front in order for you to get the right height and driving position, and if you go for the Shine Plus, you also get an electronically adjustable driver's seat, which kind of bolsters the overall functions. Now, this perfectly leads me on to the driving experience, and first off, I do have to talk about cabin noise, where the C5 Aircross Hybrid is excellent in this domain. I do suggest checking out my audio review where I go into a lot more detail on the subject. But what I will say in a nutshell is that even if you're driving at speed, there's not much noise to be heard from the tyres or indeed from wind deflecting off the A-pillars. Now, another key element for me is the steering wheel, where the vehicle just feels so lightweight and easy to maneuver. If you're going to be going around and doing certain maneuvers, or let's say parking, it's going to be an absolute breeze, so you're not going to have to worry about it. Likewise, the suspension unit is absolutely incredible. Going over speed bumps or potholes or even harsher terrain, you just feel like you're just gliding over it. And the reason behind this is because Citroen has its own system that they've developed for the C5 Aircross. It's called the Progressive Hydraulic Cushion System. Now, you can find some more information on Citroen's website about that. It'll be linked down in below. But what I will say, in a real world scenario, in kind of like a, well, trying out the vehicle or reviewing it, what you'll find is that the car just feels great to drive around inner city commutes. Now, the only negative point around this is that the car does suffer from a little bit of extra body roll when you're going around corners at speed on the country roads. But is that going to be really the case with a vehicle of its class, and is it going to be something that you're going to be really looking for in the C5 Aircross? I suspect not, and I really wouldn't worry too much about it, because in comparison to some other vehicles out there in the market, it is still excellent. Speaking of which, I don't think many people are going to be too concerned about the overall performance traits of this vehicle, but nevertheless the car houses a 1.6 litre 4-cylinder engine and a 80 kilowatt motor. Now combined, these output 168 kilowatts of power, which is the equivalent of 225 horsepower. In comparison to the petrol or diesel variants, this is the most powerful out of the bunch. Now top speed, it will get to around 140 miles an hour, and as for 0 to 60, I had it tested at 8.65 seconds. Now it's worth bearing in mind that is in its sport mode, which engages the engine by default. Now here, the sport mode means that, well, you'll have a little bit more of responsive gear shifts and the steering wheel will feel a little bit stiffer. But again, I suspect many people will be running this vehicle in hybrid or fully electric mode instead. Now what will be of great importance is its electric range, and here the vehicle houses a 13.2 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is located in a boot, and thus the reduced boot capacity versus its petrol siblings. Now the vehicle itself has a claimed 32 to 37 miles on the WLTP cycle, whereas I netted closer to 28 miles. Now, as they will say, your mileage may vary purely because of how you drive and where you drive. This was on my mixed driving tests. There is, of course, regenerative braking, which can be initiated by shifting down on the gear selector, and this initiates B mode. And therefore, if you take your foot off the accelerator pedal, it will decelerate the car at a quicker rate. Now, what I really do love about the Citroen C5 Aircross, despite it having a relatively short electric range in the grand scheme of things in comparison to a fully electric vehicle that is that the car can recharge at quite a rapid rate. Now, while it doesn't have a CCS input, which is no surprise given its battery pack size, the car does support a 6.6 kilowatt charge input, whereas in comparison to most plug-in hybrids out there on the market, they go up to 3.6 kilowatts only, and therefore take a multitude of hours, upwards of 4 hours, to recharge a relatively small battery pack, which will net you around 30 odd miles. Well, the Citroen will go from 0 to 100% in just around 2 hours, which means that if you're going to go for, let's say, a work meeting, or even if you're going to go and see some friends and family and you can plug the car in for charge, next thing you know, you come back, you're fully recharged, and you can recoup and reuse around 30 odd miles on fully electric mode, and therefore not emit any harmful fumes, which to me is one of its key selling points in comparison to other plug-in hybrids that I have previously tested. Now, if you were to run out of juice, the vehicle does have a 43 litre tank, and therefore will net you around 290 miles, so combined with its electric range, you can get around 320 miles on a singular recharge or refuel. And given that you can refuel within minutes and of course recharge within just 2 hours, it means the car is very convenient no matter where you're going. Now, of course, another very important factor is how many miles per gallon can you achieve with the combination of its fuel tank and its electric motor, or shall I say battery pack. And here I netted around 58 miles per gallon in my mixed driving tests. Now, of course, yet again, you might achieve more or less, but I think Citroen's 200 mile per gallon claim is a little bit unrealistic, and it's the same sort of comments I've had of other manufacturers which give quite unrealistic miles per gallon claims. Now, moving on, we get on to its safety credentials, and here the vehicle, at least in its 2019 fully petrol model variant, was tested by Euro NCAP and it achieved 4 out of 5 stars, which is quite a respectable score in the grand scheme of things. Now, while I can't test for heavy crash testing, as you might expect, or else I wouldn't have a car to be driving right now, what I can say and comment on is the driver assistance systems. Now, as standard, you do have cruise control, you have lane departure assistance, you've got traffic sign recognition, and also blind spot monitoring system, which is a definite plus point. There is, alas, no head-up display like you'd find on the likes of the Kia Soul EV. Now, as for visibility, the vehicle is excellent. At the front, you've got a very large windscreen. At the back, you've got a nice rear view window, and for the sides, there's big side windows as well. As for the rear view mirror, it doesn't obscure too much of my frontal view, and the bonnet is very very easy to peer over, so no issues whatsoever. As for parking, you have front and rear parking sensors that come as standard, and a rear view camera as well. There's also a top-down view, which is not quite a 3D camera system, but it does try and give you a little bit of indication of your surroundings. Now you can also bolster this by going for the Park Assist Plus in the Shine Plus trim, where here you will get the addition of a semi-automated parking system, which makes parallel parking all that bit easier. And so this all leads me on to my verdict. What do I make about the C5 Aircross Hybrid? Well, here I feel that the vehicle does cater for a certain crowd. It's for those people who don't want to go fully electric, at least not yet, be it because of their concerns of the infrastructure or the fact they don't have a convenient place to plug in. Given the plug-in hybrid market right now, I can see myself very much recommending this car as a good value proposition for consumers out there that are looking to kind of, well, tick all those boxes in a plug-in hybrid format. And as a result, it actually gets TotallyEV's Value Award. Now, of course, consider there are some fully electric vehicles out there on the market as well, and I'd be intrigued to hear your thoughts as to which camp you sit in. Can you go fully electric? And if so, why haven't you? Or if you want to go for a plug-in hybrid and you want to reduce your emissions or benefit in kind taxation, would you get the C5 Aircross Hybrid over some of its alternatives? Now let me know in the comments below. I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts, and of course if you like this video, definitely do drop a like, as it's greatly appreciated. Subscribe if you haven't already, and hitting that bell notification will give you a notification on your YouTube inbox when an independent, fully detailed review like this one goes live on the channel. Alright, I've been Chris from TotallyEV. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.